Hello and happy Saturday. Welcome to week 6 of the NFL Fantasy Football season. This is Play Calling with Keenan, brought to you by Incede.ai. Let's do this. Before we get into week 6, let's first look back at week 5, where Le'Veon Bell joined the defending Super Bowl champion Chiefs as he signed for the rest of the year there following his very short, disappointing, and expensive tenure in New York. He joins their already crowded backfield of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, reliable pass catchers Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, Demarcus Robinson, and Sammy Watkins, all at the disposal of Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. Will this be a great move on paper? Yeah, perhaps. It looks great. But looking deeper into the stats, the Chiefs are actually 27th in run block win rate, below 5 spots, trailing the Jets, who were 22nd. So will there be run lanes for Le'Veon Bell to run through? Time will tell. On a darker and sadder note, our thoughts and prayers go out to Dak Prescott, as I'm sure you've all seen, had that horrific injury on Sunday. There's not much to say. I feel bad for him. As a competitor, fan, and just human being, you see him being carted off the field in tears, and it almost brought tears to my eyes just how much he cares, how much his teammate cares. So you really hate to see that. But the good thing for the Cowboys is they did go out in the offseason and invest in a reliable backup, Andy Dalton, also known as the Red Rifle. I think he's a great replacement for Dak Prescott in many fantasy leagues. I myself have chosen to go down that route, as he still has a lot of great weapons in CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, and obviously Ezekiel Elliott with Michael Gallup there. So I think there are a lot of good backup plans for Dallas, but you never like to see injuries happen like that. Looking into the second coaching firing of the year, Dan Quinn was relieved of his duties. Ever since the Falcons reached the Super Bowl and lost, they've ultimately been downhill from there. That 0-5 starts ended the patience of Arthur Blank, and he joins Bill O'Brien as one of 2 coaches relieved of their duties within 5 weeks of the year. Next, we look to New Orleans, where drama ensued once again with Michael Thomas. Fantasy owners continue to be disappointed, as this time it was not for injuries, but rather disciplinary issues, as he punched Chauncey Gardner-Johnson in the face and was disciplinarily suspended by Sean Payton, and also got into it with coaches. It remains to see when he will have a fantasy football impact this year, as he's played only parts of 1 game and has been sidelined for the next few weeks. Finally, tailing off the recap of last week, Let Russ Cook decided to wait until the second half as the Hawks got down early to the Vikings, but ultimately came back. Russell Wilson continues to be a front runner for MVP, and DK Metcalf is quickly turning into the second Megatron. Now, let's get to week 6. And first, looking at the injury report, week 6, we've already talked about Dak Prescott. Let's get into the Browns. OBJ is questionable with an illness, not COVID-related, thankfully. We have Baker Mayfield, also questionable chest injuries. I would suspect both are leaning towards playing, as that is what they both said via social media. In that same game, a juicy matchup versus the Steelers, Deontay Johnson, who was a big fan, who we really liked on the show last week, once again was hurt, which provided a pathway to Chris Claypool, catching 4 touchdowns as a rookie. That is amazing. Looks like Claypool will get another chance as Deontay Johnson once again be out. Though on the depth chart, he still remains behind Juju Smith-Schuster, Deontay Johnson, who's out, James Washington. But if he has another 4 touchdown performance, or even half or a quarter of that, I suspect the Steelers may rethink that depth chart quickly. The Broncos, Melvin Gordon got in a little trouble over the weekend, actually the start of the week, as he was caught with an alleged DUI. The good thing is for the Broncos is Phillip Lindsay is back after an injury has held him out for the last few weeks, so he will be in the backfield. Melvin Gordon has been battling an unrelated illness. It is unsure if he will see discipline this game or if he will even be healthy enough to play. But the Broncos backfield, I would lean towards Phillip Lindsay as a handcuff in many leagues if you have him. Looking at the Patriots, finally it looks like we may have a game for the Patriots. The practice facilities open back up. Cam Newton is back. Stephon Gilmore is back. Julian Edelman is a little banged up and questionable. Switching gears to the Vikings, Dalvin Cook, who has been great this year, has officially been ruled out. However, Alexander Mattison, who looked very capable versus the Seahawks, is a great handcuff option. I know in my fantasy football league, I have got him as handcuff in both leagues. Spent a good portion of my FAB dollars, and he should be, I think, a top 10 running back, could be top 5. Very good matchup versus a poor Falcons defense. He's a must-start and a must-add on waiver wires this week. Speaking of the Falcons, Julio Jones is back this week. No injury report for Julio. After missing practice Wednesday, Thursday, he practiced Friday and is looking like a full go there. Switching gears to the Jaguars, DJ Chark, questionable, missed practice all week, looking like a game-time decision. His fellow receiver in that group, Laviska Shenault, should play. as he practiced Friday after missing Wednesday and Thursday. So a couple good pass catchers will be back. For the Jets, it looks like it'll be Joe Flacco's show once again as Sam Darnold is doubtful and rumors creep about him possibly losing his job. We'll see what happens there, but we will be most likely to be getting another week of Joe Flacco. And that Jets backfield, like I said, no more Le'Veon Bell. He's out, gone, and in the Midwest now with Kansas City Chiefs. The Buccaneers get their arguably top guy back. Chris Godwin is going to play this week. Fantasy owners rejoice. And his running back compadres, LaShawn McCoy and Leonard Fournette, both look like game-time decisions. Ronald Jones owners probably should get another good week of RB2 potential from Ronald Jones. And that wraps up the injury report. We're getting, hopefully, as we get through the year, we'll have less soft tissue injuries and more players active. I look forward to seeing a healthier week. Taking a look at the rookie recap, the rookies were led by Chris Claypool, who scored 4 touchdowns. That's right, you heard that correct, 4 touchdowns. He devastated the Eagles' defense. They had no answer for him. He scored so much he ran out of touchdown celebrations at the end. That's definitely a record for most touchdowns scored by a rookie. Can he keep that production up? Remains to be seen. As previously talked about, Deontay Johnson will be out this week, providing more opportunities. He still trails both Juju Smith-Schuster and James Washington on the depth chart, but I suspect after that 4-touchdown performance, he will continue to get more opportunities. Looking at the Cowboys, CeeDee Lamb will be a good option for Andy Dalton going forward, as his 433 yards ranks 6th in the NFL and first for receivers out of the slot position. He leads all rookies in receiving, and he's looking a lot like the 1A, 1B option with Amari Cooper. Some thought he'd be the 3rd option behind Michael Gallup, but it looks like both opportunity and production have passed up Michael Gallup as the option there. I feel for Joe Burrow. He was sacked 7 times versus the Ravens, bringing his sack total in the year to 22 times. He's been hit 50 times in the year. Both the sack and hits lead the NFL, not just rookies. He really needs an offensive line. I feel bad seeing him get hit like that. He doesn't really have much opportunity to make plays if he's going to be rushed to the degree he was versus the Ravens or any other defense at all. Justin Herbert broke the Monday Night Football record with 4 touchdowns. 4 seems like a theme this week. He played really well versus a really talented Saints secondary, albeit resulting in another loss. I really like what I see out of the former Oregon Duck, Justin Herbert. He's got a really strong arm and looks really unfazed by any moment thus far. Clyde Edwards-Helaire owners probably punching air right now, as Le'Veon Bell will certainly take away from his usage and production. The extent to which remains to be seen, but he's going to obviously lose a lot of carries to Le'Veon, a lot of receiving. We'll see if Andy Reid finds ways to utilize both of them in an offense. Andy Reid's a really creative play caller. They could find ways to keep them both on the field, joining Sammy Watkins, joining Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. The options, Patrick Mahomes is going to be able to throw it whoever he wants. Already one of the best quarterbacks in the league, has just a bunch of weapons to throw to. And that recaps the rookie report. No-go Tigers this week, but the rookies have played really well. We'll see how Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow continue to play. Eventually, I suspect we'll see Tua in Miami, but that time has not reached yet as Fitzpatrick's continuing to hold him off. All right, taking a look at player breakdowns, we will start with the quarterback position, a player who I really love this week, Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford is playing against a Jaguars defense, which is giving up about 280 yards per game. With weapons like Kenny Galladay and Marvin Jones, I really like him this week. He's thus far been pretty middling, not booming or busting, but I think this week is the week he breaks out. 20% chance to boom as opposed to just 18% chance to bust. Really like Matthew Stafford this week. A quarterback who I don't like is Big Ben Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger is playing a Cleveland Browns team which has been surprisingly good on defense. He'll be up against Myles Garrett. He hasn't thrown the deep ball that well. Not a huge fan of Big Ben this week in a game that I think could really be decided in the trenches. Physical game, if you remember from last year, some drama may carry over with the Browns and the Steelers not liking each other. Big Ben is pretty modest projections. He's boomed once this year, hasn't busted yet. He has a pretty low opportunity to boom this week, only 15%, even lower to bust. I'm thinking he will be more, not necessarily bust, but more middle to average projections this week. I don't like him as a QB1 in any league. A player who I do like is Deshaun Watson. He finally got it back on track last week with a win, 24.86 points with 3 touchdowns last week. This week, I love him versus Titans defense, which has been vulnerable over the top. They're giving up 261 yards per game. He's got a 19% chance to boom over 23.8. I kind of like his chances thrown over the top. You get Will Fuller's been a good deep threat. Brandon Cooks broke out last week. Only 14% chance to bust. I think he's going to boom this week. I really like Deshaun Watson. He hasn't boomed or busted yet. I think this is the week where he does it in a pivotal AFC South game. And lastly, we got Teddy Bridgewater, who I loved last week and came through for me. This week, I'm not a huge fan of Teddy. He's playing a tough Bears defense. He's only projected 14.4. Good chance to boom, pretty good chance to bust. He's done so both once this year. I don't really like him versus a tough Khalil Mack-led Bears defense. I think this game could be lower scoring. It was a really good pickup last week because he's only rostered in 36.6% of leagues. I think this is the week he may drop him and pivot another way for the quarterback position. Looking to running backs, I really like, we've been talking about a lot in this podcast, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Listen, this is his last chance with Le'Veon Bell coming in next week. He's had a really big time to shine. As far as his boom to bust, he's averaging at 18.5 point PPR, 16% chance to boom, only 8% chance to bust. I think a lot of stats out the window here. I think he's got a lot to prove to the Chiefs and to his fantasy owners who may be having to have his touches ultimately suffocated by Le'Veon next week. I like Clyde Edwards-Helaire one more big week this week. Like looking at another player who I like at running back, James Robinson, the electric rookie from Jacksonville. He's been great. He's been great this year. He's going to play a very poor Lions defense, which is giving up 170 yards per game on the ground. Look at this boom bust. Watson loves him. 22% chance to boom, only 8% chance to bust. He's boomed twice this year, has not busted yet. Taking a look at his games, he scored double digits in all of them, including a 20, a 30 in 3 games in the teens. He's been a factor rushing and receiving here. Look at his receptions. He's got multiple receptions in 4 of the 5 weeks. And I really like James Robinson continually have a huge impact going down the road. A player who I'm not a huge fan of at the running back position, Aaron Jones. He's coming off a bye. He's done well. He's been a good fantasy player for years. I don't like him this week. 18.4 projections, half point PPR. He's boomed once this year, has not busted yet. I'm not necessarily leaning towards a bust here, but I am leaning towards a more middling projection game. You got Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady. This game could be a lot of passing. And for the Packers and Aaron Jones, the Bucs have the top-rated NFL rush defense. I think that Aaron Rodgers is going to have to scramble. I think they're going to limit the run. I think they're going to make Aaron Rodgers beat him, which could be a fatal game plan. But I think the way the Buccaneers defense is built, they're really built to limit the effectiveness of Aaron Jones. Lastly, looking at Miles Sanders, who is, I know I haven't been a fan of really any week, but also not a fan of this week. He is, he's not looking good. Last week he looked good. He's had 2 decent weeks, missed game 1, and he's had 2 pretty middling weeks. He only had 11 carries last week versus Pittsburgh as they got down early. I think that may once again be the case. I think that the Ravens may get out to a big lead, and I think Miles Sanders may be playing from behind, as the Eagles have often done this year. And next, look at the receivers. I don't like handing out Jets compliments too much, but we will take a look at Jamison Crowder, who is always open. It doesn't matter who's throwing him the ball, who the Jets are playing. Jamison Crowder has produced. Taking a look at the 3 games he's played, he has at least 7 receptions in every game. He's gone over 100 all 3 games. And he scored 2 touchdowns. He's one of the best receivers in the NFL you won't hear about. As far as boom projections goes, 26% chance to boom over 20.4, 18% chance to bust, 8.2. He's boomed in 2 of his 3 games he's played. I suspect him to boom once again versus a not great Dolphins defense. A player who I don't like, Odell Beckham Jr. He's already questionable with illness. The Colts really had a good success last week. They rolled their defense over, shaded the safety on him. And this week, Baker Mayfield's going to be under pressure from the Steelers defense. They blitz the most, they win their pass rates the most, and they have just a lethal defensive line. I think that Odell will be taken out of the game with a shaded safety. Baker will not have the time to throw to him. It will be more of a game where slot receivers like Jarvis Landry will see targets. Watson seems to disagree with me, as they have him scoring 20% chance to boom, only 6% chance to bust. He's done so once in each game. I think with him being questionable and a more favorable matchup for a slot receiver, expect more short throws from the Browns. And next receiver who I really like is going to be Laviska Shenault, a player that not a lot of you are rostering, but you should be. He's only rostering 41.4%, though we see a positive increase of 10.6. Taking a look at the game logs, he scored double figures 4 of 5. He's quietly been a consistent WR2, WR3 play. And ultimately, look at the boom bust. They love him, 24% chance to boom, only 13% chance to bust. He's playing a Lions defense that is not good thus far this year, and they've been just trashed, to be honest. And I don't see that stopping, especially if DJ Shark is out. Expect Laviska Shenault to be the beneficiary of a lot of targets. Also, fun fact, he has had the most highest elusive rating among all rookies, most forced missed tackles. And lastly, getting into the new Cowboys third receiver, Michael Gallup. I'm not a fan this week. I drafted Michael Gallup after he had a huge year last year. This year, it's pretty evident now that we see that CeeDee Lamb is the number 2 or number 1 target for Dak Prescott, now Andy Dalton. Amari Cooper is still going to get his catches. I just don't see Michael Gallup being an effective play going forward. I mean, taking a look at what he's done this year, he has just not been consistent. I mean, he has busted in 3 of his 5 weeks. He's boomed only once. He had that one big catch last week for Andy Dalton. I see a trend forming. I see a trend is he's not as reliable as he was last year. He was almost around the same WR rankings as Amari Cooper was last year. CeeDee Lamb is vulturing a lot of opportunity, and I don't hear any opportunity knocking for Mr. Michael Gallup. And that wraps up our player projections for this week. Well, let's take a flex break here. Looking at my flex of the week, I love Devontae Parker. Mr. Devontae Parker has quietly been a pretty solid receiving option ever since a slow start versus New England. We see he's done well against good defenses. He's performed well versus Buffalo with a touchdown, having a good 10-catch game versus my Seattle Seahawks, and also scoring touchdowns last week versus the Niners. He's playing a very poor Jets defense divisional matchup. Watson likes him to boom 21% of the time. He's boomed once this year, yet to bust. I think we're going to see a second boom performance from Devontae Parker. The Jets haven't been able to stop anyone, and Fitzpatrick, whatever it is, he's slinging the rock. I really like him to do it again this week. And getting to the wild card of the week, I believe, something wild, Mecole Hardman is going to benefit a lot from opportunity that's knocking here. Demarcus Robinson, he has been passed by Mecole Hardman. Mecole Hardman is continually to see his route running increase. He's out there for more plays. Andy Reid is leading to trust him more. Sammy Watkins may be out this week. I love Mecole Hardman, only rostered 42.4% of leagues. I think that this is a great move to pick him up. Wild card of the week, get your waiver wires out, pick him up. 24% chance to boom as opposed to 16% chance to bust. He's boomed once, busted once, been inconsistent as all heck, but I think that he is going to be a good player going forward. I mean, against Baltimore and New England, he scored a touchdown, has played well. Slow start for Houston and the Chargers, but he's seen more routes and opportunity knocking here as he's passed up Demarcus Robinson. Getting into the mortal lock of the week, we take a look at the matchup between the Chiefs and the Bills. Before I get into this matchup, boy, can I say I was wrong last week. I thought there'd be 6 passing touchdowns between the Hawks and the Vikings. 2 very weak pass defenses. They stepped up. Mike Zimmer and Pete Carroll did great jobs considering game plans for both Russell Wilson and the Vikings' weapons. I'm not going to comment Kirk Cousins, but I will compliment Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson. They are great receivers. With that being said, you would think that the Chiefs, coming off a pretty disappointing loss to the Raiders and the Bills getting absolutely shellacked by the Titans, you'd think their defenses would tighten up. Absolutely not. No chance that happens. Both these teams are great on offense. The over is 57. You're going to want to smash the over in this one. I think there's a lot of offense, a lot of points in this game. A key game for both teams. Both teams that consider themselves AFC contender could possibly be a preview of the AFC Championship. I think both these offenses can come out guns blazing, all the weapons on display. I'm leaning the over on 57 for Mortal Lock of the week. At the IBM Watson trade of the week, this is a real trade that has been offered to me. My team, I just picked up Claypool after his big 4-touchdown game. Also Slayton, the Giants' top target, and Chase Edmonds. But yeah, this looks like Ocho Baby, the number 1 person in our league right now at the moment, has utilized IBM Watson to send me a trade. Biggest player in this trade is easily Chris Godwin. He's missed a lot of action this year, but he still is expected to be Brady's top target once he comes back. Also included is we got Brown, who's been in a crowded backfield with the Rams. You got Darrell Henderson and rookie Cam Akers. Not a huge fan on Brown. And Ayuk has been good, rookie out of the Niners, more of a deep threat. Not a great matchup this week versus the Rams, who are the #1 rated fantasy receiver defense. Personal thoughts on the trade, it's all pretty good value for Godwin. I think that Claypool was more of a flash here that we won't see again. Obviously, you can't sustain 4 touchdowns a week. But even with injuries to Deontay Johnson, I'm not huge on Claypool. Slayton, I don't really like Giants receivers, though. Slayton has been pretty effective this year. Having two huge weeks, 2 20-point weeks, 3 pretty middling weeks. He is, he's boomed 3 times or boomed twice, busted 3 times. He's pretty boom bust. He's a wild card every week. Chase Edmonds has been good. He's picked up the slack for Kenyon Drake, who has not been as good as advertised. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I think the fairness is relatively, I'd be downgrading 2 positions and upgrading 1. The value of it's pretty good. Chris Godwin's the best player in the deal. I think that'd be a good move to acquire him. I look at Claypool, Slayton, and Edmonds. Mostly I could replace them on waiver wires, but I'm not too confident in Brown or Ayuk to replace them. So I most likely have to lean to waiver wires for 2 positions of starting need for me this week. I've been devastated by injuries with Dalvin Cook, Austin Eckler, and Dak Prescott going down. But I am leaning on declining this trade. I will say it's a pretty good trade, but I'm leaning on declining it. Looking at my team, if I were to accept, it is projected I lose out in 23.3 points for the remaining of the year. And the opponent would be going up 4.8. Overall, pretty good trade by IBM Watson. I'm leaning towards declining, but Chris Godwin would be nice. I may rebuttal and see if I can get a little better value than Brown and Ayuk, because I think they're rather unplayable, even at the flex. So that's kind of my thoughts on this trade analysis of the week. Let me know what you think. That is a wrap. Week 6, play calling with Keenan, brought to you by Incede.ai. Hope all your teams do great. Go Hawks. Go fantasy football. We'll see you same time next week.